Welcome back to our Hot Topics series, brief video conversations of critical content for mid-market chief execs. This next video is all about the power of technology driving business growth. Have a quick watch, tell me what you think. This afternoon we're talking again about growth, particularly in mid-market businesses and how IT plays into that. Pete, you were talking earlier about examples of where systems and digital really have presented a choke point to the business's expansion and the challenges about releasing that choke point.
Yeah, I've certainly come across situations where directors at clients aren't feeling confident about growing the business because their systems are old and they're not scalable and they haven't got the capacity to deliver their vision for the business. And by kind of working with the technology teams and the rest of the business to modernize systems, to remove blockers, to getting transactions through, we've been able to give them the confidence to take the businesses to the next level.
I've seen examples of where sales teams feel frightened to do deals. They don't feel able to really go into the market bravely because they're worried that the delivery function, whatever that means, is going to let them down. And ultimately, that'll end up as their problem from an account point of view. So it really can have a very insidious effect on the kind of sales drive of an organization if the systems don't enable the flow of business.
And I think we see that regularly, Graham. We see businesses who built really, really snazzy, attractive front ends on their systems. The client gets a fabulous experience, but in the back end, it's all still held together with some string and some sellotape, and the fulfillment element just isn't there. And customers are then disappointed by waiting 48 to 72 hours for their delivery or for the level of customer service they're expecting.
Earlier, we were talking about the options between existing products, new products, existing markets, new markets, and businesses where they've been expanding into new products and new markets or some other combination of these. Steve, you had some comments about this.
You build on what you've done already. So I think it's not always about doing something completely radical, but building on what you've done. For example, one of our companies built a solution to manage contracts, and it was using OCR to ingest a lot of paperwork that takes a lot of time and effort to go through, to use machine learning to discover, data elements within that paperwork so that you can do some interesting analytics. And now that they've built a contract management system, they're looking elsewhere, and they're looking into areas like the medical legal services area. When you have medical cases brought to court, there's often huge amounts of paperwork that lawyers have to sift through. And so we've already got that OCR capability, the machine learning capability to draw interesting data out of those documents and present them to people that have a certain amount of expertise that need to have access to data to connect the two. So what we're doing there is we're looking at expertise we've already built in one particular area to help us to break into another market, but using all those skills we've already built up.
I worked in an environment where we've been getting feedback from customers that they wanted a service that we didn't offer. And I worked with a really commercially astute individual to turn his vision into a reality using software development teams to build a business capability that we just didn't have before. And that commercial individual was then able to go out and sell bucket loads of it. And we grew that business from a 40 million turnover to 120 million turnover in about 18 months.
We were also talking before about how growth can look quite different. It's not always just about top line or bottom line growth. There can be broader definitions of growth.
Growth can take many forms. I'm involved with a private equity company investing in lots of different companies and trying to join them together. And part of the growth challenge they have is actually merging these organizations together to, one, generate profit, two, to cross-sell, but also to make sure the organization operates as an entity going forward, because at the end of the day, they want to sell that organization and make a big profit from it. So growth can take many different views going forward.
And Steve, you were talking earlier about how during the pandemic, for organizations where top line growth was difficult, actually was perhaps an opportunity to grow culturally, grow as a business internally through coming together.
Absolutely. I mean, one of my clients that has a geographic spread right across the world and often worked out of offices suddenly found themselves working from home. And we found that technologies like Zoom, as we're using today, and Microsoft Office and Teams were a great way to connect the people together, but that wasn't good enough. It was also, how do we actually change or enhance the company's culture that we had at the start of the pandemic and take it through the pandemic to become stronger at the other end. And I think, for some people joining organizations, in the middle of the pandemic, they didn't even meet another human being. They joined an organization and they were connected through email and through the likes of this. And you had to think about how to create the company culture in that virtual environment. Rather than just sort of wait for the pandemic to be over and then sort of continue on. We actually found ourselves growing quite significantly during the pandemic. And that's making us a lot stronger now when we're looking at the opportunities to work in this new hybrid mode.
Yeah, so out of that adversity came opportunities to become stronger.
Absolutely. And I think technology was absolutely fundamental to that.
So the story for lots of entrepreneurial businesses is that the business grows rapidly to begin with, but increasingly becomes bogged down with process, organizational systems problems. And so the question is, how can the business recover that growth and move forward?
So basically, the challenge for one of our clients is essentially, I need to maintain headcount and not increase it, but I want to grow. How do I do that in a manufacturing environment, especially in the food industry? And we've come up with an answer that we do that through technology by reducing paper, reducing processes, optimizing processes, increasing productivity, allow them to, one, grow, but secondly, allow them to move into different markets, especially retail market, which is a big challenge for my client, but also be able to move into different geographical places, especially in Europe. They're very interested in doing that at the moment, but they need a good baseline technology to support them doing that.
So this, in a way, allows them to open chapter 2 of their growth story.
Absolutely. It allows them to move their business wherever they want, because that process is running in the cloud and they can run their business from anywhere, from home, from the office, from a different location, wherever they decide to do it, and just copy the processes they're using today that we're developing for them, lift that up and move it somewhere else. All they need is extra people to run with it.
Once you've got those core processes and the correct core technologies in place, it's very easy then to leverage those to pivot and move in a different direction. So I can talk about a client we have in the Northwest who has a B2B website, and they're very keen to leverage that and launch new products on a B2C website because there's a huge untapped market available to them. And by us putting in place the right technologies, they're able very quickly to spin up new brands, new websites, and appeal to a whole new marketplace that's not been available to them previously.
Growth is incredibly exciting for the directors, but actually it can create really challenging working environments for colleagues and teams. And our technology roadmaps are really aimed at really moving around the business and helping those colleagues cope with the pressures of growth, whether that's upgrading old systems, putting in more automation so they can cope, so that they can scale, and actually hopefully enjoy the growth as much as you.
I think there's an additional thing that our really brilliant principals, CTOs and IT directors can bring to the party, and that's to help the businesses that they're working with understand what they could be doing, what is the art of the possible, what technologies are out there, what are their competitors leveraging, and how can they use technology to the maximum benefit of their business.
And when business leaders have that plan in front of them of investment, where are they going to put their money? It's the CIO that's the person that can sit down with them to understand the benefits realization of an investment in a technology initiative. What are they going to really get? What's the return on that investment? And that's the CIO that I think is the one that can sit down with them and make that clear. I think the pandemic has also triggered this view towards where employees are based. Up until now, they've been in a box, they've been in the office. And they've had the cybersecurity and the systems in computer rooms in those offices. And the pandemic has forced us to think different. People are now working from home. There's no IT staff in the office taking care of those computers. And so the move to the cloud, I think, has been something that many companies have done over the pandemic. And now they're in the cloud. They're on new technology platforms that are unlocking new opportunities. They're much easier to use. They're more integrated with other systems. And I think by getting out of that office environment, that computer room environment, and moving into the cloud, it's giving us new opportunities to think about great new things that we didn't have before.
We introduced a new system allowing us to reduce the amount of time from contracting with the client to invoicing the client from 60 days to 6 days. Huge impact on client cash flow, allowing us to invest in additional properties and additional systems.
Right, so a tenfold improvement in the invoice cycle time. bringing that cash forward, which has a material impact on their ability to run the business.
Absolutely.
We work a lot with directors to turn their visions into a proof of concept through a scale up and then into a large scale business. I worked in an environment where we'd grown really rapidly through recruitment and having to put an awful lot of colleagues into operational environments. By utilizing automation, we were actually able to reduce the number of colleagues by 2/3, making the business more efficient and allowing us to free up those colleagues to go and work in other parts of the business, which helped drive future growth.
Right. So a really transformational change in the amount of effort that was required to deliver on those projects. Okay, that's great. Thank you all very much indeed.